Welcome, everybody. It is 2015, and we're back. Did you miss us? We were gone. We've been gone since December 22nd.
I know some people did because I got some hate mail.
Oh, did you really?
Well, not really hate mail, but...
Yeah. Well, I
What's wrong? Why is Glenn back on the air?
Right. I ran into one of our most faithful listeners, and it never ceases to amaze me, the people that listen faithfully to Talkback. I mean, from every walk of life you can possibly imagine. One of our most faithful listeners is former sheriff and former police chief and former chief of police at Polson, who is now happily retired, my friend Doug Chase. He listens every morning as faithfully as you can possibly imagine. And he said he grabs me when I went to the swearing-in ceremony for all the county officials on Tuesday. He grabs me. He says, "How much longer is it going to be?" I said, "We'll be back on Friday." He said, "Good, because I'm sick of that Glenn Beck guy and sick of that Sean Hannity guy and all this." I was with Sean Hannity twice in one day. I can't stand it. So anyway.
People have withdrawals, I guess.
I guess so.
I started to have withdrawals a few times. So.
Well, this continues to be Western Montana's only live interactive radio, Missoula live interactive radio talk show. And if you missed us, the first half hour is open phones.
That's right.
So you must have some sort of pent-up frustrations and things that you didn't get a chance to talk about your favorite stuff from 2014 because we weren't here. So if you'd like to do that, the lines are open, 721-1290. Hope you haven't forgotten what the phone number is.
721-1290. Easy to remember.
There you go.
I wanted to start off by asking you, what were some of your favorite things? What was your favorite? Because I know you're a movie guy. I expect that you probably went to 2 or 3 at least during your vacation.
I did.
So what did you see, and what was your favorite movie of 2014?
You know, I will be honest with you. I don't. Wow, my favorite movie of 2014. I don't really have any because. Okay, it's confession time. The only reason I really go to the movies is for the popcorn. I know that sounds so stupid. I mean, why not just go and buy the popcorn and bring it home? Because it tastes better when you're sitting in the darkened theater alone and you're stuffing your face with over-buttered, over-salted popcorn that is really, really bad for you. So,
I can overcharge you for popcorn if that would help you. Sweet.
I'll just make some Jiffy Pop and charge you $10 for it, right?
Each kernel is a quarter.
Yeah. So to be honest with you, I can't remember any movies that I saw in 2014 that really made a huge influence on me.
Really? Nothing that you liked? Or
The Hobbit movie was basically a cartoon. Seriously, all the dopey, computer-generated junk that went on during that. And by the way, who told Peter Jackson, the guy that did the movies, who told him that he could develop some non-existent relationship between a dwarf and an elf, that never happened during, as I read the Lord of the Rings trilogy, just so they could have some sort of weird love interest going on. I don't get that.
Yeah. Well, that wasn't my least favorite part. I mean, they kind of turned one of my favorite books into an extended action scene. Yeah. And I don't know. It was really long. Some of the parts, some of it was really great. I thought it was really cool. Some of the set pieces were really cool in those movies, like the Underhill, also the final battle over the Dwarven Kingdom.
Right.
That looks really cool. The statues, the stuff in the background.
Right.
Pretty awesome.
It's all computer generated, John.
Yeah, it's still very cool. And I thought the guy that played Thor in Oakenshield did a pretty good job.
All right. Now see, here's my problem with that. And this is, again, I'm really weird, okay? So please forgive me if you look at the radio and go, what? But when you have a beloved story like that you've read since you were a kid, which I have, okay? I practically memorized The Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit, The Fellowship of the Ring, The Two Towers, Return of the King, The Silmarillion, all that. I practically devoured them growing up.
You've read The Silmarillion?
Yeah, absolutely.
You've got nerd credit here.
Yeah, thank you very much. But you create, when you read those things, you create this whole universe in your mind as to what Frodo looks like and what Smaug looks like and what Aragorn. And yet, because of the way Tolkien so richly describes them, that he leaves it up to your imagination to create that. But then Peter Jackson, God bless him, everybody wants to make a buck, puts these movies together. He puts people in the roles of these. Well, they have to, because that's how you make a movie.
Yeah.
Well, unfortunately, it shatters your vision, your mind's eye view of what these books are all about, so that now, whenever I sit down to pick up The Lord of the Rings, all I can think of is Elijah Wood to get out of my head. Come on. This is not what Frodo really looks like, or Bilbo really looks like. Come on.
It was going to be really hard for him to make Aragorn as cool as he was in my mind.
I know.
But I think they did a better job with Smaug than my mind had.
Well, whatever. Let's put it this way. Smaug's voice was great. Yeah. What's the guy's name who did his voice? It's
Engelbert Humperdinck. it's the guy
something
from,
like that, like a Fungerbund or
Cumberbund.
I don't know.
Cumberbund.
I can never remember his name. My kids know it. But anyway, so there you go. We're up against our first break. 721-1290 is our number, 1-800-568-5309. Did you have a favorite movie in 2014? If you did, give us a call. Or, perhaps even more apropos, if you have a favorite talkback episode in 2014 that you remember that you thought was the greatest thing ever, give us a call at 721-1290. We will be right back. Thanks for joining us here on Talkback, 721-1290. We are back after having 2 weeks off. You may not be used to us being back yet. So, get those dialing digits all limbered up. 721-1290 is our number, or 1-800-568-5309. You can also make your comments known on our Facebook page. And it's going to take us a little while to get rolling again. We had 2 weeks off. So as we had 2 weeks off, you had 2 weeks off. I understand how difficult it is to get back into the pattern. So if you haven't called, if you didn't call at all during 2014, maybe you should start the new year off right. Make it a resolution to give us a call this year.
And right now we're kind of shifting gears from movies to what was your favorite or least favorite episode. And if you say least favorite, not just because it was boring, I want to hear something that angered you on Talkback in 2014. I will start off by saying my favorite episode personally was probably being able to speak with Robert O'Neill.
Yeah.
It was a pretty big one for me. But even more elusive, and one of my favorite episodes of the year was being able to speak with Mayor Engen. That was a good shot, one timer. I guess we had twice. He was able to come on twice with us.
Yes.
Hopefully, 2015 we'll be able to get him back on.
Hopefully, we can mend some fences somehow. I guess CPC, the mayor has suggested, is endorsing a new resort tax.
Wow.
A gas tax / resort tax, so that we can reap the millions of dollars that are going through Missoula, that people are driving through, they stop, they get gas, they stay overnight, and then they leave, and we don't charge them, an extra excise tax, if you will. Not sure where that money would go. I'm going to try to get a hold of the mayor today and interview him and ask him, A, how much do you hope to make with this tax, should it pass, and B, where would the money go, what would you do with it? Because we already have several new taxing districts, as you know, that have been passed and are being implemented. And we've got starting in 2015, we're going to have additional taxes for the Parks and Trails bond that was passed. We're going to be paying higher taxes for school district items, I believe, in 2015.
Well, there's a new bond issue.
There is a bond issue coming. Yeah. So anyway, if you have a favorite episode, you want to give us a call, 721-1290 or 1-800-568-5309. I remember one of my least favorite guests, Dr. Hussein Ibish.
Oh.
Not a fan of Dr. Ibish.
Yeah.
I guess I have a very long memory. When you call my listeners ignoramuses and that sort of thing, that kind of sours me on. But I will admit, the last 2 times that Dr. Ibish has been on, he has been very polite.
And I'm sure there's at least 1 or 2 listeners that are ignoramuses. One of them is right across from you.
Well, the other one's right across from you. So anyway, let's get Marilyn on the line. Good morning, Marilyn. Oh, rats! I missed it. We had Christmas. Darn.
I had Christmas, Marilyn, and I thank you for your Christmas card to us as well.
Yes, we appreciate that. Okay.
If you got it, and was wondering if we were going to be able to have Matt Truella on as a guest.
We might. I had talks to try to get some prominent legislators on in the next couple days. I think Matt will be in town on the 7th, and I already have shows scheduled for that first week of January.
That's what I was afraid of. That was why I tried to get that note in early, but he had...
But I might be able to get him on Monday for a call-in, probably not live in studio, but we'll see. I haven't... I did get a call from someone that was with his group, and
from Project Liberty Tree.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. But I haven't looked into it much more than that particular call.
Well, they're good guys, and it's a good message. And I had read the book quite a while back when it first came out, and it's a message that we really need to hear and learn about and get educated on, because it's along the line of civil disobedience, but it's more for our elected officials to take on as their project, not necessarily for us to do, but the elected ones.
Well,
for Tim Fox to say no to homosexual marriage, period, and not let it happen.
So give me the pitch of Truella's book. I haven't read it, so kind of what's the acorn here?
Well, let's see. I highlight a little nutshell in a paper that I've been handing out to some people. It's a proper resistance to tyranny and a repudiation of unlimited obedience to civil government. That's the byline of the book. Here's a quote that a Roman Emperor Trajan, speaking to one of the subordinates, "Use this sword against my enemies if I give righteous commands. But if I give unrighteous commands, use it against me." So it's putting God's law first, and when man's law goes against God's law, say for the, killing of the unborn is what comes to mind, but Matt is, in this book, there's quite a few laws out there, that are unconstitutional, that go against God's law, and that are, that tyrants, dictators use against us. And Matt's trying to make the case that, say that the person down in Yellowstone County, I actually heard her quoted as saying, this was the gal that leads the office down there, saying that we are to leave our, people that work for the government are to leave their religious beliefs at the door when they take the oath of office.
Oh yeah, I did speak with that. This is over the clerk that wanted to be excused from handing out the same-sex marriage licenses. Yeah. Is that right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, it's like, so Matt's trying to make the case that, first of all, that...
So is Matt saying, rebel? Have an uprising, or what?
Well, no, he's saying that Yellowstone clerk down there, or the leader of it, puts God's law first, that says, homosexuality is an abomination, and marriage is between one man and one woman. That was what the people voted on. And so for that one judge to say, overturn that law, that vote is wrong. And so that court clerk down there, or the head of the department, the county, whatever she is, should not go along with that judge's ruling and not hand out the permits. And for Tim Fox, what he did was right in saying he's going to fight it, but he went along with saying that they could go ahead and get married, which I don't understand why he did that. And he should have just said, he could have said, no, judge, the people voted, we're not going to do this, and besides, it goes against God's law. Even if the people hadn't voted for it to be banned, Tim Fox should have said, no, judge, we're not going to go along with that.
All right. Well, thanks, Marilyn.
Yeah.
Have a good one.
So I hope you can have him on, please, please, please.
We certainly will.
I'll look into
thank
it.
you, bye.
Thanks a bunch. All right, we're up against a break. 721-1290 is our number, 1-800-568-5309. If there's something you want us to talk about in 2015, something we haven't addressed, I can't imagine what it might be.
We do talk about everything from acorns to nuts.
That is a nut.
No, yeah, you're right. It totally is a nut. As am I.
Sometimes you feel like a nut. Sometimes you don't. Okay, we're going to come right back. Ugh. Ouch. That really hurt. Been a long time. I have to work myself back up into doing all this funky stuff. So anyways, 721-1290 is our number, 1-800-568-5309. Or you can make your comments known on our Facebook page.
And we've already got a caller on the line.
We certainly do. And I'll take my fake British accent now and talk with Daryl. Good morning, Daryl. What's up?
Good morning. Yes, I got a question for you, then someone I'd like you to bring on.
Yes, sir.
The question, yesterday when I went to work at 6:45, they had reserve blocked off northbound at Mountain Reserve. Do you know anything about what's going on with that?
At Mountain Reserve, I do not.
Yeah, they had the whole block blocked off. We had to go around onto Eaton and around.
Maybe a triathlon?
For one block, though?
Oh, it was just the one block?
Just the one block,
there may have been an accident there. That's usually why they block things off.
Was it like a police blockade, or did it look kind of
Well, there was fire trucks in there, too, but I don't know. And they didn't talk about it on the news last night.
It was probably some sort of accident?
Yeah, that's what I'm assuming. Normally they report it, though, and I didn't hear anyone talk about it.
I haven't heard about it either.
Okay.
I have no idea, but my first suspicion is aliens.
Wow.
Most likely.
Wow. It's the new year. Can you tell?
Did you see President Obama's motorcade by chance? 'Cause I've heard that stops traffic.
Why would they need fire trucks for the motorcade?
I don't know. To put out all the cigarette butts.
We didn't get that crazy in Montana.
Wow. Okay, so what would you like to see on the show, Daryl?
I had a gentleman on your one of your top of the news things. I think it was Fred Thomas or whatever from the state.
Yes.
Yeah, he's a Ravalli County senator, I believe.
Why he thinks it's not fair for people that are not married to not have affordable insurance? That doesn't make any sense to me. Of course, that don't affect me. But the way he was talking, it didn't make any sense.
Well, I think
people in Montana don't have affordable jobs.
Yeah. What he is talking about is Governor Bullock wants all 70,000 of the people in Montana to be eligible to receive Medicaid. Okay, federally funded Medicaid. And the Republican-led legislature has introduced their own different version of that, saying, that kids and those who are disabled and certain veterans should be able to get that free help. But he said able-bodied adults should not qualify for the free medical care.
This is Fred Thomas.
This is Fred Thomas.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, because a lot of places nowadays, even where I work, they're hiring part-time help so they don't have to give them insurance. He's got to understand that,
As a matter of fact, Daryl, I have the story right here. Let me just read it to you, okay?
Okay.
It says, Republican lawmakers have released a proposal that would give health insurance to some of the low-income Montanans who would be eligible for coverage under Medicare expansion. Lead newspapers reported the proposal released Wednesday would only cover the disabled, parents whose income falls below the poverty line, and some military veterans. Senator Fred Thomas, gentleman you talked about from Stevensville, who may be listening, Fred, if you want to call us, who helped draft the plan, says free government health insurance should not go to able-bodied adults without children. The Republican proposal is not yet attached to any bills to be introduced during the 2015 legislative session, which begins on Monday.
Yeah, I don't know if I want to speak for Fred, but I assume that his position would be if you're an able-bodied adult and you're not providing for children, then you should be able to get at least enough of a job in order to get health insurance, either through the Affordable Care Act, which is already out there, or through your employer. And that providing health insurance for people that aren't going to do that incentivizes a lack of work or incentivizes not working.
Does that make any sense, Daryl?
Yeah, but I just don't agree with him.
No, that's fine. I would like to get him on, though. I think it would be a great show to talk about.
Allow me to share.
I think it would be too.
Allow me to share a little bit of my own personal story, okay? Before I became a highly paid radio person, when I met my wife 30-some years ago, I was working at a local radio station, all right, during the day. At night, I worked, I'll take you way back now, when the mall first opened, I worked at the Squire shop, selling jeans to people and stuff. Okay, so I did the radio thing in the morning. I did the Squire shop thing on the nights and weekends, and then when I wasn't doing that, I worked for an outfit, Fred's Appliance Repair, not the new Fred's, but it was an old.
Was this in the 70s?
Yes.
So are you what happened to 70s fashion? Are you the problem?
All right. Now, let me just say that I cleaned appliances on nights and weekends when I wasn't working at the Squire shop or the radio station, and those three things together were able to, give me enough money so that I could get married. So when people say there aren't enough jobs out there, well, maybe there aren't, but sometimes you have to do 2 and 3 different things to make ends meet. I certainly did, and there are thousands of others that still do.
Yeah, I was going to say, just a year ago, I was working 3 or 4 jobs, or I guess almost 2.5 years ago.
Yeah.
Now, but there's certainly jobs out there, just a lot of people don't want to do them.
Yeah.
And a lot of them aren't high paying, to be frank.
And let's put it this way. None of them are high paying, because if they were high paying, you'd only have to do one.
Right.
So I don't know what to tell you, Daryl.
I've been working the same job for 13 years, and I'm still really squeaking by.
Yeah, I hear you, man. The times are tough in the land of plenty, and I to be honest with you, I do not know. I do not, as a radio announcer right here in Missoula, Montana, I do not have a solution to that, rather than trying to make the economy more broad so that more companies who pay higher wages would want to come into Missoula. Is there any other way aside from, forcing people to pay $15 minimum wage? I don't see that working at all. Do you?
No.
All right. Well, Daryl, thanks for the call, man.
You bet.
Appreciate it. Have a great day. And Happy New Year, by the way.
We definitely have to have that discussion, because it's going to be a big one. And I know the governor's plan is different this year. Okay. I haven't really read it, but apparently it involves taking those federal funds and investing them into a state plan through a private insurer. It gets really complicated quick. So I'd like to have someone explain it to me, why it would be a great idea. Okay. We'll see. We're
going to take a break. We have a guest coming up, right?
That's right. Minutes? So Tom Woods is our guest after this quick break. Tom Woods is a Democrat representative in the House out of Bozeman area. And he says that the Republican House leadership, Austin Knudsen, who will hopefully be on next Friday, and others involved in leadership, have put the finger, quote, in the eye of the Democrats through some legislative rule changes. So we're going to get his take on things in just a few seconds.
So basically, winners get to make the rules. And since the Republicans have the majority in both the House, Montana House and Senate, they are making rules that are angering a lot of Democrats and folks on that side of the aisle. So anyway, we'll talk with him and get your phone calls and your feelings and opinions as Talkback resumes for 2015, the first show of 2015. And we appreciate your calls. We'll be right back. And we're back on Talkback. 721-1290 is our number, 1-800-568-5309. Now, I believe it's the 63rd legislative session begins on Monday in Helena. It's a 90-day session. They do it every 2 years. And so hundreds of legislators are getting ready to travel over to Helena to find, well, I'm sure they've already got a place to live, all set up and ready to go, and to begin to make hundreds, perhaps even thousands of new laws for the state of Montana. And one of those is on the phone with us right now.
That's right. We have Tom Woods. He's a Democrat. He's a representative for House District, let's see, I wrote it down here, HD 62 out of Bozeman. And he was in House District 64, I believe. Anyway, he is a two-term representative, and he's on the Rules Committee, and he claims that there's a power grab going on in the House, and was invited to come on and kind of explain, some of his positions, what he sees in the rules that are being put across by the House leadership, and how he believes they might threaten the legislative process. I have included on our Facebook page, if you want to read it, an op-ed that Tom sent to us. You can read that there. And
it was actually in the Missoulian recently.
Feel free to leave questions or comments on that. We'll try to get them across to Tom, or you can call in to 721-1290. So I'll just kick things off by opening up the floor and just kind of letting you explain basically what's your problem with the new rules.
What are those rascally Republicans doing there, Tom?
Well, probably the most far-reaching of these rules is a change, and it seems like a very slight change, but it has very far-reaching consequences, and that is this. In the past, the Speaker of the House has been able to take a bill and re-refer it to the House Appropriations Committee if he doesn't like it. And that's been something that the Speaker has been able to do. A very slight change that is being made is that the Speaker will be able to do that, but in order for the legislature to override his decision, instead of a simple majority of 51 legislators, this is going to be raised to a supermajority of 60 legislators. And so I know that sounds kind of like a minor change, but what it effectively does is, with the makeup of the Appropriations Committee and with the makeup of the legislator, basically it gives the Speaker power to kill any bill that he doesn't like. So, a good way of thinking about this, or I would say a way of thinking about it, is that it's giving the Speaker of the House executive power. Basically, we're allowing one person in the legislature to kill any bill he doesn't like.
Well, now, allow me to jump in here just a second, Tom.
Sure.
What you're describing sounds very familiar to what Republicans in the Senate have been complaining about for the last 4 or 5 years with Harry Reid. For instance, take the Keystone XL pipeline votes. There have been dozens of those votes. There have been dozens about reforming the affordable health care that never make it to the Senate floor simply because Mr. Reid says, I don't like them, so we're not going to even introduce them for a vote. Is that kind of the same thing?
I see striking similarities between the two. And, I've knocked on a lot of doors and talked to a lot of Montanans. I've run for office a couple times. And really, I cannot remember a single voter ever asking me to make Helena more like Washington, D.C.
A good point.
Well, Tom, I want to ask you, so it seems to me that this new rule change would slow down legislation. That'd mean that there would be less legislation, which is kind of, I guess, a problem for the legislators who really want that legislation. But as everyday Montanans, how do you see this negatively impacting us?
Well, I wouldn't say that it's going to slow down the production of legislation. What I would point out to is this is going to allow one person to selectively excise legislation that he doesn't like. So, I understand what you're saying that, this could make for less laws. I don't see it that way. I see it as being a dangerous tool placed in the hands of one person.
So if you could change this, Tom, what would you do?
I would have it revert to the 2013 rules, where, yes, the Speaker still is allowed to re-refer a bill to appropriations. I see that, that's a system that has worked for a long time. But if a majority of legislators think that the Speaker is acting inappropriately or is not using this power properly, then a simple majority should be able to overrule the Speaker. A very basic principle of the legislature is that, hey, the majority rules, and that's the way it should be. And as I see it, this is an erosion of that very basic principle that the majority should have to say in what happens.
Well, are not the Republicans in the majority? And I think Republicans would say, well, gee whiz, we've got the majority, so we get to make the rules. If Democrats were in the majority and they tried to do the same thing, would you, as a fellow Democrat, would you oppose that?
This is a matter of principle, and I think the principle stands on no matter which side of the aisle that you sit on. And I would say, hey, what is wrong with the majority ruling or the majority deciding these issues? You guys have the majority. But I think what it comes down to, Peter and John, is that the Speaker is afraid that maybe some members of his own party may not agree with his decisions. And so he is trying to set the rules up so that he can take away the influence that some of the Republicans could have on the laws that are passed.
So I tell you what, we're up against a break, Tom. So hang on. What I hear you saying, and I want to clarify this when we come back. What I hear you saying with that comment is that not only is the speaker, Mr. Knudsen, I understand?
Yes, Austin Knudsen.
Austin Knudsen planning to do that to Democrats, but also to fellow Republicans whose bills he doesn't agree with. Is that what I hear you saying?
Well, I'm saying that potential definitely exists, but it's not so much that the Republicans' bills that he may be going against, but it's the Republican votes that he is afraid of.
Okay. All right. So we're going to come right back. Go ahead.
Yeah, just from our guest's point of view, as a Democrat in the legislature, you have to pull a lot more votes from the Republicans in order to get the supermajority than you do to get a simple majority.
Right.
And that's got to be concerned.
So we're going to come right back. Catherine also wants to visit with you, Tom, so we'll come right back after this quick timeout. This is Talk Back, and it is Friday already. Man, the week just went so fast, John. Poor Tom doesn't realize that we've been off since December 22nd. We had 2 weeks off. This is our first day back. So you're our first guest of 2015, Tom.
Oh, hey.
See,
I feel so honored.
So now you have a distinction. All right. We have Catherine who wants to visit with you. Catherine, you're on with Tom Woods. Go ahead.
Good morning. First of all, is Austin Knudsen, was he the one that introduced this in the first place? And what is the expressed rationale for this change?
Well, the person who physically introduced this amendment was not Austin Knudsen, but was Greg Hertz, and he's a Republican majority whip. I'm not sure if, I doubt that Greg wrote the amendment. I'm sure that it was Austin, along with probably Representative Whittick and Representative Essman, who wrote this amendment. As to the express purpose of writing it, there was not a purpose given. Let me step back from that and say the justification that these fellows are using for this is that, hey, you need 60 votes to override a committee or to bring a bill out of committee. So we're trying to make our new rule for a supermajority in line with that decision. You need 60 votes to quote unquote blast the bill out of a committee. We also want to make it 60 votes to override the speaker, which is a really absurd argument. What else do we need? Are we going to require 60 votes for then? Do we need 60 votes to elect a new speaker? No, we don't. Usually, a decision is made by a simple majority. And so this justification for this new amendment just doesn't work for me.
Okay. Let's see, all right. Is this going back to an older rule, or is this a completely new rule?
Catherine, as far as I know, this is completely new.
Okay, so it's not in the past that it's ever been that way then?
Well, not in Montana. I think other state legislatures and the federal legislative process has a similar process.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Thanks for the call, Catherine.
Am I wrong on that, Tom?
As far as I know, I think that you're correct about that. That there are different legislatures do things differently. The federal government, God bless them, they do things their own way. But this is Montana, and in my mind, if it's not broke, we don't fix it.
Well, let me ask you this. I totally understand why you would write an op-ed about this, why this would be a big deal for you, especially being on that side of the aisle. But can you express, just try to give us some words, why this would be negative for Montana? Well,
as I see it, this is these fellows are setting up the board to be able to kill Medicaid expansion. I think that is their number one goal. The way I see the committees set up, I think that's what the play is.
So you think that basically they're shifting power around, which is their prerogative since they're in the majority, in such a way so that Medicaid expansion won't be able to pass this year. So how do you see that playing out when you were talking about the alignment of the committees?
Well, as I look at the committee assignments, I see folks who are put in committee. Well, let me back up here a bit. If Medicaid expansion comes in, it's going to be assigned to Human Services, or it is going to be assigned to what else? Where else could it be?
Appropriations?
No, not appropriations. It'll go to. We'll probably see it there, but it'll probably go to Human Services, or let's see, or it could go to. Well, let me take a look. Or it could go to State Administration. And Jeff Essman has been placed as chair of State Administration. Art Whittick has been placed in Human Services as the chair. And so, as I see it, that's setting up those committees to basically kill Medicaid expansion when it comes up. If for some reason it makes it out of those committees, then the Speaker will have a chance to kill it with this new rule.
I totally understand that you have a policy disagreement with many of these guys, clearly. You're a Democrat, they're Republicans. But why the legislative rule process? Why is that particularly a bad thing?
Well, a bad thing?
Well, it sounds to me that you feel that it's going to hinder the legislative process in ways. And your best argument so far, I got to tell you, is that we don't always want to do things the way D.C. does. But it's kind of funny, and I understand that. But why would it negatively impact Montana laws and life?
Well, think of it this way, Peter. I mean, the legislature is supposed to make decisions by rule of the majority. And the rules are supposed to exist to provide for rule by the majority and also protect the rights of the minority party. And what this rule change does is it basically does away with rule of the majority. It should be 51 votes to pass a bill. And as I see it, what this is doing is it's going to make it 60 votes to pass a bill if the Speaker disagrees with it. And what that effectively does is it gives the Speaker executive power. That's not a power that should exist in the legislature. We already have an executive. That's the governor. Does that make sense?
I get your case, I guess.
But I can understand why Republicans would want to put that rule in so they could keep it out of the realm of giving it to the governor. You see what I mean? So that they bypass that particular avenue. That doesn't necessarily make it right, but I can understand their motives behind doing it. Am I wrong there?
No, I understand their motives quite well. I mean, and it kind of goes into what we call teleological reasoning, or the end justifies the means.
Right.
Do anything it takes to win.
A little Machiavellian going on.
Getting a little philosophical here.
Hey, tell you what, we're up against a break, Tom, and which brings to mind some other things that I want to visit with you about. He's going to be till 10. Is that right?
Well, it's up to him. We'll talk to him during the break.
Yeah, we'll take a break because there are all sorts of issues that are going to be coming up in this legislative session that are of huge import, especially to us here in Western Montana. And I want to get his take on what these rules might mean for those particular pieces of legislation. So,
by the way, I know we have legislators out there that listen to this show. I know we have some Democrats. I know we have some Republicans. Ellie Hill, Champ Edmonds. I know you listen from time to time. If you're listening now, we'd like to hear what your take on all this is.
Fred Thomas. Yeah. Anyway, 721-1290 is our number. We're coming right back. I got caught, John, using big words again. I have to have you explain Aristotelian tautology.
No, tautology is different.
Teleology.
Teleology is
that tea leaves, right?
Yes, exactly. No, it's dealing with the end. What is the end of things? So if you talk, for example, if you believe in a rapture and the second coming, all that stuff, that would be a teleological religion.
Gotcha.
But anyway,
I got it.
during the break, I found out that our guest, Tom Woods, he deals with ethics as a teacher at MSU Bozeman?
MSU Bozeman, right.
So, which is great. Do you think that there is anything unethical? I'm asking you to delve into your private life a little bit here, what you do when you're not on the legislative session. Anything unethical in this rule change?
Yeah, I do think it's unethical to basically try to concentrate power in the hands of one legislator in a legislative body. I think it goes against the principles of what a legislature is, which is ruled by the majority. And so that's my problem with it. That's my ethical problem with this change in the rules. And also in terms of philosophy, I tend more towards what's called the utilitarian aspect or the utilitarian camp of ethics, which is greatest good for the greatest number. Now I'm not all one way or all the other, like a lot of people. I'm a blend of the two. But as I see it, these guys, Mr. Knudsen, these fellows, Mr. Knudsen, Mr. Wittick, Mr. Essman, the end justifies the means. And they think that they're doing the right thing, I believe. They think that they're doing what needs to be done, but in doing so, I think that they're abrogating or they're crossing a line. And so that is,
I get how you see it as consolidating power in one individual, but doesn't it also consolidate power into the majority by making it a 60 vote majority instead of a 51% majority? Doesn't that?
I don't see that at all. A majority to me means the majority. And what this does is it allows 41 far-right members of the legislature or 41 friends of Austin Knudsen to basically have veto power on any piece of legislation that comes across the floor.
And with that, we're up against a hard break here, Tom. Tom Woods, going to ask you to stay with us over the top of the hour break here, because I asked you a question before the last break, but there are a lot of hugely impactful bills coming up. We'll talk about that when we come back. Okay, we're back. I'm Peter Christian, that's John King, and joining us on the phone is Tom Woods, a Democrat legislator from Bozeman from House District 62.
That's right.
And now, Tom, one of the things that I wanted to ask you about, some of these rule changes that you've talked about, we haven't gotten to all of them yet, but it seems to me that there are a great deal of really weighty issues coming before this legislative session, not the least of which that concerns us here in western Montana is the Flathead Reservation Water Compact, and was wondering if these rules might hinder that from coming before the body as well. Is that one of your fears?
Well, it's definitely a concern. I mean, the compact is a big deal, and I think that's a really good question to raise. Will the compact then rest in the hands of the speaker with these new rules? And I would say, gosh, it kind of looks that way.
Now, this isn't the only topic of apocalyptic proportions. We also had the dress code, which everybody freaked out about for 2 weeks when there was no other news.
Right.
But now that there's a plane missing and now been found, and it's a new year, there's other things to write and talk about. But, through all this stuff, I assume that there's other rule changes that come to the top of your mind as of legislative importance. So if you could kind of break down some of the other changes you see as problematic.
Well, like we discussed on the break, a rule change that I didn't put in the op-ed just because of space constraints is that the Republican minority, or the Republican leadership, I should say, are trying to do away with a parliamentary move called the Call of the House. And what the Call of the House is that a member of the legislature can ask for a Call of the House, which means we need to have all members present in order for business to proceed. It's a rule that has existed, as far as I know, for decades, if not a century, and it has been used as a tool to delay, but by one party or the other. And it is also a tool which protects the minority party in this way. So let's face it, we're going to have a lot of votes that come down to one or two people voting one way or the other. And if let's say my mother passes away and I'm out of town to go to her funeral, what the other side can do is move important legislation to second reading and then third reading while I'm out of town to take advantage of my absence. And what the call of the House can do is say, nope, we're going to stop business until we have all the legislators in the room.
Now let me hold on just a second, Tom. Can anyone on the floor, despite their seniority or lack of seniority, can they make a call for the House?
I believe that's correct.
Okay.
This, just so people that aren't, if you don't follow the legislature that closely, you probably remember in the last session there was that incident in the Senate where people were banging on the desks.
Standing on their chairs and banging on the desks.
Yeah. The ruckus, or what I call the raucous caucus. Anyway, that session was kicked off by an attempted call of the House, if I'm not mistaken, right?
That's correct.
So Mr. Auger, Senator Auger, was not in the room, and one of the Democrats attempted to make a call of the House. And so the goal here, right, if you're a Democratic representative, you want to have all the votes you can possibly get for whatever topic was going to be. Was it the budget? I don't remember the topic that was on the cards at the time. But anyway, they made the call or they tried to, but the person running the Senate at the time chose not to listen, chose not to
recognize the call.
So the call never happened, and everybody freaked out, and then it was a shame on everybody's house, basically.
Right, and I would make a distinction there. It's not that the president of the Senate didn't recognize the call. He refused to recognize the person who was trying to speak, which is against the rules. That's against the Constitution. And so that was what angered the Democrats at that point, is that, hey, you can't do that. You can't refuse to recognize a member of the Senate or a member of the House if they are trying to speak.
So it sounds to me like in the Democrats' view, the Republicans were abusing their majority.
They were, in their view, the president of the Senate was abusing his position.
Okay.
Now, so that rule that would have maybe taken place and allowed all the legislators to be there for the vote is going to be out in this session for the House, right?
That is the current proposal for the 2015 rules.
So when you say these are proposals, these are things that haven't been officiated or haven't been agreed to, or how does that work? You're on the Rules Committee, if I'm not mistaken. You'd think they'd have things shored up before Monday.
Well, the way that it works, and I'm not a professional politician. I'm not a professional legislator, and I'm kind of learning this as I'm going along too. But the way it works is that on the first day that the legislature convenes, it has to establish rules to live by. And on day one, what we are going to do is accept the past rules of 2013 as the rules we're going to live by until we can get these rules up out of the Rules Committee for a vote up or down by the whole House. So for the first couple days of the legislature, we're going to use the 2013 rules.
Okay. So you'll be doing that for a while, and then all those rules, they go out of the committee that you're in, and they go to the floor, and everyone votes on them and says, "This is the way that we're going to walk the line."
So what I hear you saying, and please correct me if I'm wrong here, Tom, is that these rule changes that have been proposed by the majority leaders could actually be voted down by the separate bodies, could they not?
Well, and by a simple majority in those bodies.
That's correct, and that's what I would really like to see happen.
Oh, okay. So I for some reason I had thought this was a done deal, and that's that's why when I read the op-ed, it was really quite strongly put that I had thought this had already been decided. So basically, you were making an appeal to your fellow legislators to be aware of this when they come into the House and Senate, right?
You bet.
I'm really glad that we get to hear the legislature do this, because I want to hear a vigorous debate over skirt length that drags on for 2 or 3 days.
Well, I'm concerned about my blouse.
And then I could go to my daughter, when she's 14. Here. She's only 7 now. But when she gets older, I can say, look, honey, this was decided by the Montana legislature. And they took their time to make this important decision for you.
Yeah, we're going to take a little break. And Tom's only going to be with us for another few minutes. But, Mike, we'll get your call on here in just a moment. We have one line open. So, luckily, most of our legislators have a good sense of humor. So we're going to come right back with more in a moment. This is Talkback, and it's Friday, folks, January the 2nd, 2015, the first Talkback episode of the new year. Joining us on the telephone is Tom Woods, a legislator from House District 62 in Bozeman. And let's see, this is Mike who wants to visit with you. Mike, you're on with Tom Woods. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, good morning, Tom. Well, what I'm going to ask you is, because I'm a trapper here, and one of the things when I wanted to go to the legislature and the Trapping Association, absolutely are terrified of it, but make trapping a constitutional right the same as we have for hunting and fishing. And I was just wondering where you'd have came down on that, because I made a lot of phone calls, but I don't know if I called you. I may have.
Mike, I don't remember you calling me on this. And let me get this straight: that you want to consider trapping a constitutional right under our constitutional right to hunt and fish. Is that correct?
Yeah, the same as we have for hunting and fishing.
Just another form of harvesting game.
Yeah, and besides that, if trapping becomes illegal, which it's been tried 2 different times, it would destroy the fur industry in Montana big time, plus raise all manner of hell with your livestock industry. So I'm just curious where you'd come down on that, and I got another couple comments I'd like to make.
Real quickly. Go ahead, Tom.
Sure. I understand that you want I hear a lot of different viewpoints on trapping, and I get it. You want a means to make a living, and I get that, and that should be guaranteed to you as a citizen. What I also understand is that I have a lot of constituents who run their dogs on public trails, and their concerns are, look, we need to know where the traps are, or these need to be well marked, and I understand that as well. And so I think what needs to happen is that the trapping industry needs to agree to do its job well. And
let me cut in there. We're very well regulated on that, more than you realize. But the fact is, I was born with the right to trap in this state, and everybody else was. Why would we want to remove that right from the future generations and say, we don't like it because we just don't like it, so we're going to take
Mike,
that right away from you?
I know trapping is a big heartfelt issue for you, but if you have questions about rules, that's kind of what I'd like to focus on. We only have a couple more minutes.
Well, I'll have one other quick statement, because I called a lot of people running for office, and it's amazing. A whole lot of them never read the state constitution. So, and I think a test would be in order before you swear to uphold the Constitution of the state to find out if you even knew what you're upholding.
Okay, Mike, thanks for the call. Appreciate that.
Not a bad idea.
You have a Facebook comment.
I do. This is from Lindley on Facebook. She says, and out comes the name calling. She's referring to you, Tom, had me engaged right up until he used, quote, far right, end quote, to describe his opponents. It shows to me that his motives are not utilitarian in nature. We are conservatives, Lindley referring to herself, and at this point, after hearing this argument, I am in favor of whatever limits federal government power. If the, quote, far left would vote to increase that power, I stand firmly behind whatever rule would achieve that end.
So there you go. Now let's get Larry on the line. Larry, you are on with Tom Woods. Go ahead.
Yes, Tom, I had a couple concerns about the issue regarding the supermajority proposal. And one of your concerns was the expansion of Medicaid. And I have a great deal of concern about that expansion because from what I've read and what I've heard, the state would be expected to adopt that and take that over when the federal money or the federal support of that goes away. And I've seen that happen with when Clinton was president with the $100,000 or 100,000 cops. We had 2 or 3 officers in the city police department that were lost because the federal money went away. And I also question just the number of people that would be affected by this. The number of 70,000 seems to be floating around out there. And I wanted to get your take on that, because I think if you get coverage, it doesn't mean you necessarily have better health care. And so I wouldn't want the state to have to absorb those costs, number one. And number two, I wouldn't want to see those people that would think they had coverage not be able to secure a doctor and medical treatment. So I'd like you to respond to that, please.
Thanks, Larry.
Sure. Yeah, Larry, I'm getting I'm going to get in the weeds here on Medicaid expansion here, but a couple things. The state is going to be obligated for a maximum of 10% of the cost of Medicaid expansion. And so I think it's important to recognize that we're not going to be stuck with, the state is not going to be stuck with more than 10% of the cost. A couple other points I'd like to make. We could. I don't know if the number is more than 70,000 or less than 70,000. I'm not sure. But I am a strong backer of Medicaid expansion, because I see Medicaid as being one of the most efficient ways of providing health coverage for people. I think a lot of people think that Medicaid is like health insurance, where you pay in every month. That's not the way it works. If you're on Medicaid, if you're sick, your bill is paid. If you break your arm, your bill is paid. It's not, and the amount that is paid for your care is a heck of a lot lower than Cigna or Blue Cross Blue Shield would pay. So it's a very efficient way of delivering health care for people.
So what you're saying is, and please, I'm trying to just restate what you said. What you're saying is that hospitals, clinics, doctors actually receive less money for the care that they provide people on Medicaid than they do if they were allowed to just go with the market value of whatever those services might be.
That's correct.
Now, forgive me, but why do they agree to that?
Well, it's a matter of.
Well, first of all, not everyone does.
Yeah, right. The other part of it is that I think a lot of people are seeing that medical costs are breaking a heck of a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of people are coming around to that idea, and they see that this idea of having more people covered is good for everyone, or that this is a good idea. I think a lot of people are getting tired of the fact that our medical costs are out of control in the United States, and Medicaid and Medicare are setting the low end of the price spectrum, and I think that's important.
All right,
Tom, thanks for feeling free to comment on a whole bevy of issues, including trapping and Medicaid expansion. And thanks for giving us your op-ed. If people want to read that, you can read it on our website at newstalkkgvo.com or on our Facebook page.
And Tom, listen, during the legislative session, if something comes up that you want to get the word out to not only your own constituents but ours, because we're not only on the air in Missoula, but we're online at KGVO, newstalkkgvo.com. We would invite you to call us. We're on every weekday morning from 8 to 10. We'd be glad to put you on and give you a forum.
Well, it's been a lot of fun.
You bet. It's been our pleasure, and thank you so much for your comments, and you've been a great guest. We appreciate it.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, have a good time in Yellowstone.
Oh, we're going to try.
All right, good deal. Bye-bye. All right, that's Tom Woods, House District 62 in Bozeman. Now, here's my question.
Yeah.
How do I guess maybe I've been operating in extreme ignorance here for the longest time. But how does the federal government get, let's say Dr. Bob Smith? Okay, maybe there is a Dr. Bob, Dr. Bob Abercrombie or whatever. How does the federal government get Dr. Bob Abercrombie if I break my arm and it's going to cost me $16,000 to get it fixed? All right, and so he charges me that, and that's what I pay. How does he? Let's say somebody else who is on Medicaid, they break their arm and they pay, and the federal government comes in and pays $6,000 or $8,000, and Dr. Abercrombie says, "Well, I guess that'll have to do it." It doesn't quite cover my costs, but that's what they're going to pay.
I'll tell you, one of the ways they do it is they have a private sphere of insurance, and what happens is that doctor will jack up the rates on the people that he can while still taking the clientele from Medicaid because he can. I mean, honestly, but you got to understand, not everybody does it. Not everyone takes Medicaid insurance.
And as a matter of fact, fewer and fewer every year are taking Medicare and Medicaid patients. We're going to come right back. Love to continue this discussion with you if you have a feeling about this. I mean, this is just hitting me thinking, wait a minute, if they can do it for the Medicaid folks, why can't they do it for everybody?
Yeah.
All right.
Well, I'm sure that's what a lot of the Democrats would like.
Yeah. Well, we're going to come right back with more. The doctors are saying, well, hold on just a minute. We got to make a living, too. So we're going to come right back. Oh, yeah. 721-1290 is our number. Who could it be now? Well, I think it's probably Christine. How cleverly he weaves that into the conversation. Hi, Christine.
Hey, how's it going?
Groovy. How are you, V-Kid?
Oh, pretty good.
Happy New Year.
My head cold, stuffy sounding.
Oh, there you go.
I'm going to explain how Medicaid and Medicare work.
Please do.
The government uses the bully pulpit, basically, to force doctors to accept a certain number of those patients in order to have hospital rates.
All right.
So basically, if you want to be in business as a medical professional in certain industries, you have to accept those patients. So what the doctors do is they do like a profit and loss, and they say, okay, we can only afford to take X many Medicaid or Medicare patients, and then we'll charge the rest of our patients more to offset that, and then we'll only take this many, and that's the cap. So if you add more people to the Medicaid and the Medicare, what's going to happen is they won't be able to find a doctor, because the doctors have already all decided this is how many we're going to take, and we're not taking any more.
Yeah, they're already maxed out, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So all the states that have adopted the Medicaid expansion, what they're finding is their emergency rooms are now more full than they were before they did the law, which, if you remember, was supposed to be what the law was to fix, people using the emergency rooms for care.
Right, exactly.
And it actually did the opposite because they can't find a doctor that will take Medicaid. And as your guest mentioned, there's no cost to people on Medicaid, so there's no disincentive to abuse higher cost services like emergency rooms.
Yeah.
So actually healthcare costs skyrocket the more people you put on Medicaid.
Well, and here's something else. If you have a program whereby you don't get charged at all for your medical care, that means if I get a sliver under my thumb from working in the garage,
then you can get that calf implant you've been wanting.
Then rather than taking a little needle and having mommy, get it out, you run to the emergency room, and it doesn't cost you anything because you go and get all the services you need, including a tetanus shot, blah 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 blah, because it doesn't cost you anything.
It doesn't. There's no disincentive for abuse.
I think there are certain things Medicaid won't cover.
Like what?
Well, elective surgeries. I don't have the full spectrum. I do a radio show in Missoula, Montana. I don't have everything under my belt, but there are certain things that they won't cover.
Done in an emergency room.
Yeah, pretty much.
And emergency rooms are not allowed to turn you away.
Correct.
So people don't understand that one of the reasons why healthcare costs have skyrocketed for the rest of us that's bankrupting us is because we've implemented programs like Medicare and Medicaid, and the cost of supplementing abuses is being pushed on the rest of the population in the factoring in of higher healthcare costs.
And of course, if you want to take that into other spheres, housing that is subsidized is being paid for by higher housing prices for everybody else, right?
Yes.
Say
the government started paying gas stations $1 a gallon for poor people to fill up their cars. What do you think gas would cost for the rest of us?
It would be a lot more.
It works the same way in healthcare.
All right. Well, thanks, Christine.
Thank you.
You have a great day. Appreciate it. We're up against a break. So, Tyler, if you'll hang on, we have two lines open, 721-1290. So I guess the question is, is there a better way to do all this?
Oh, certainly. I think everybody would agree there's better
Well, what
ways.
is it?
There's thousands of better ways. I mean, I would say we have one of the worst ways of doing it.
I'm just curious if you have a better way of providing health care to people. Give us a call.
One simple element that needs to go into our medical care to make it better is you need to have the consumer at the decision point of quality. What I mean by that is, when you go shopping for any good in Walmart, right? Go, let's just pretend. The other day I went to go I was looking at calculators, and I noticed one was packaged wrong. It was upside down. The price point was much lower, and then I had to make the decision: do I want this horribly packaged, probably cheap, going to break in a couple days calculator, or one that's better?
Right.
I got to make that decision. We need to be making decisions like that when it comes to healthcare.
Okay,
we need to be comparing and contrasting medical services.
If only you knew what your medical services actually cost.
Well, we don't know.
Maybe you could do that.
Exactly.
It's a big, deep, dark secret. We're going to come right back. Tyler will get you on. We have 2 lines open, 721-1290. And if we have time between now and 10 o'clock, we'll talk about the mayor's idea for a resort and excise tax for Missoula, which would bring in millions of dollars that we could use to lower property taxes and all that good stuff. So that's what he said.
He's going to lower property taxes?
And we're going to come right back.
I like that.
Hey, this is Talkback, and the number is 721-1290, 1-800-568-5309. Kind of got things kicking off a little bit, talking about health care, Medicaid, Medicare, and health costs, and perhaps what are some ways maybe we could figure out a way how to lower costs altogether. And John suggested making the consumer, aware of the various price points and put them in the driver's seat as to which health care they might want to choose.
I would love to see a Montana State Legislature make a law that hospitals and health providers needed to submit to the consumer the cost of their care. This is done for every other field. I mean, you go and get your car checked up, you can ask before they even do anything, how much is it going to cost?
And can I get a free estimate?
And then they have to come back. Hey, can we put this muffler on? No, I don't know. It's too expensive. Whatever. But you get to make the choice.
Yeah. I remember going into a dermatologist's office several years ago, and I walked up to the front desk and I said, "How much is an office visit?" She goes, "I don't know. We just submit it to the insurance and they pay it." So, really? She did not know. So let's get Tyler on the line. Tyler, good morning. You're on Talkback. Hi.
Welcome back.
Hey, we missed you, buddy. What's going on?
Oh, my God. Ew. I hate the holidays.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I go through withdrawals. I have my coffee, and I stare at my fireplace, and I sure wish there was some radio show on the air right now that I could call in and talk to.
So were you that Grinch that was taking their snowblower out and throwing rocks and stuff at the kids on the snow hill? Was that you?
No.
Okay. That's good to hear that.
Well, I'm glad you found a safer outlet for your rage and frustration.
We had company come into town. We took them sledding and shooting and had a good old Montana vacation.
There you go. Shooting and sledding.
Sledding while shooting? Is that like a new biathlon?
Yeah, that's it. The biathlon sport there.
Exactly.
So
you got to keep it real in Montana.
So what's going on, sir?
I thought I'd tie in a couple stories, a couple things all together, tie this whole show up in a bow.
Okay.
My favorite story from last year was when you guys had me on with a veteran that I know who was able to tell his horrific story of his treatment for his injuries that he received.
Oh, yeah, that we were talking about the VA. That was during the VA crisis, which a scandal which has almost been forgotten by the media.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, yeah. And it's still raging. They're still trying to figure out who to fire, and they're still trying to track down who was responsible for what.
Or actually, Tyler, let me just tell you what's going to happen here. Okay, is we're going to have the crisis du jour. I'm sure whatever it might be for the next couple of months, and eventually the powers that be in the VA will simply. Anybody looking? Nobody's looking. Okay, we'll just keep going, doing what we're doing until it comes back in the public. Oh yeah, we're on it. We're good. You see what I mean? And I think unfortunately that happens when it comes to government reform.
Yeah. So. It absolutely does when you have the government involved in something as big as this. And another one big thing to remember about that whole show was the fact that with the close down of the war in Afghanistan and the drawdown, taking troops down to pre-World War II levels, you're going to have a lot more vets hitting the system that is already understaffed, underfunded, performing, and it's going to put another draw on the system. And I fear that we're going to have more deaths before we get a solution to it. But I think you're right that it will fade from the light.
You know what's interesting is I was reading the farewell speech that John Walsh gave to the Senate. Okay, just before he left. Okay, and putting all aside,
in his own words.
Yes, John. But putting all else aside of the troubles that he had with plagiarism and all that, one statistic that really startled me, and I'm hoping it's not true, but the statistic that he said was that 22 veterans are committing suicide every day in this country. Now, and he said if there was a headline saying that 22 of our soldiers, wherever they might be stationed, were getting killed every day, exactly. there would be an uproar like you wouldn't believe. But because after they come home and they're forgotten and they're not getting the care that they need, and perhaps they have some problems that they're not getting help for, and they're taking their own lives. I mean, that to me it just broke my heart to hear that. And one of the proposals in this new Medicaid deal is that some veterans, we didn't say which ones, some veterans would be included in that new Medicaid expansion.
That number he got from the Department of Veteran Affairs, they released in February. Stats, let's see, numbers reported by 21 states from 1999 to 2011. So that's over a pretty large period of time.
It's a longitudinal study. Yeah.
It's not like a 1 year sort of, it's not like last year. That was the stat. Anyway, those states...
What were the years, John?
1991 to 2011. Or sorry, 1999 to 2011.
99.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's the same time that I was in. I joined in 99, I got out in 2010. But yeah, it's a frightening number, and I'd love to, there was some stuff that came up over your guys' vacation that I'm sure we'll delve into at a later date, but one other thing I wanted to tie this all in together with is the Medicaid expansion thing. And if you remember the veteran that I brought in, he got off the VA treatment and went to Medicaid because it was free. And he thought he was going to get more treatment, except for the fact he found out that more doctors are less willing to take that.
Yeah.
And he ended up getting subprime care. They said they were going to remove a rib to help deal with the pain. They billed him to remove the rib, but it never removed the rib. He's still in a tremendous amount of pain. But to tie it all in, we learned last summer that if you use Medicaid, when you die, the government will come back and try and reclaim the expenses of what you used when you were on it. So everybody who thinks that you're getting free health care, and just like your guest came on and said, everybody deserves, at least, the bare minimum, at least free health care, be able to go to the emergency room, get treated for free. They'll come back and get you.
I would like to see that in writing, Tyler. I really would.
We discussed it. We discussed it back in the summer.
Well,
you remember?
It's not every state that can do that. There's some states that have laws like that, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. And you know what, Tyler? We are like way beyond a break, but I appreciate your call, man. And call again tomorrow. Or I'm sorry, make that Monday. I don't even know what day it is, for crying out loud. 721-1290 is our number, 1-800-568-5309. We are coming right back. Hey, we're back on Talkback. 721-1290 is our number. We appreciate your calls and your comments so far this morning on our first day back from 2 weeks of vacation. I know you have been pining and wailing and gnashing your teeth, wondering when Talkback would return. Well, we're back. So.
I'm still flabbergasted. I have no clue what Peter could have possibly done. What did you make? What did you do to make vacation feel like work? I mean, what sort of steps did you take?
I went to news conferences. I went to I covered both the officer-involved shootings that occurred over the New Year's holiday, which was, wow, talk about weird.
Yeah.
Anyway, you just happened to be within 24 hours of each other, and Anyway, so and then I covered the swearing in of the county officials, which immediately followed by the swearing at of the county officials. That's an old saying. You get sworn in, then you get sworn at. So that's and when you're a politician, you're kind of used to that sort of thing. But let's go ahead and get back to the phones and say good morning to Candy. Hey, Candy, what's up?
Good morning and Happy New Year.
Same to you.
I think that in the Medicaid, Medicare world, you'll find that most people have to divest themselves of whatever they have to be eligible.
Well, that is one tactic that people use before they sign up for Medicare or Medicaid. They make sure that their accountant, redistributes all their, if you want to use the word hides, all of their assets so that it can't be taken away from you.
Well, I wouldn't put it in those kinds of words. I think that there are families that are involved in this where the parents feel that they, rather than going to the government, it should go to their families for all the work they've put in and all the money they've paid in for certain services and Social Security and all that kind of good stuff. And I want to back up Tyler that at the end, they'll come and take whatever you have left. And that's true, to pay it back. But, this whole system of taking people's wealth or money or house or the house they live in, I think that if I remember correctly, there were instances, an instance where a guy had his wife buried on the property or something like that, and his property was being taken in a foreclosure, and all sorts of stuff happened. But at the beginning and at the end, they get their money or try to get their money one way or another. So if people think that anything's for free, they're very misinformed.
I understand. Thanks. Thanks, Candy. Appreciate the call. Bobby, you're on Talkback. Hi.
Hi. Okay, you said about how come you just can't go to the hospital and say, well, how much is it going to cost?
Okay.
Well, having worked in dentistry for a long time, they do have a list of fees. Okay, they know how much it costs. However, usually, so when you just had a patient and the doctor or the hospital, you had one fee. That was it. Then the government got involved, and now you have three parties. So now you have an insurance company, the health provider, and the patient. So when you go, say, now you're covered by insurance, the insurance company will tell the hospital or the doctor, they will tell them, we think this fee should be $120. The insurance company says, well, we will pay 100% of what we think the fee should be, which is $100. So now your cost for that fee would be $100. However, a private citizen not covered, their fee is going to be $120. See how that works?
Sure.
Now when you get the federal government involved in it, which was supposed to be cheaper, and now I can see why Max Baucus took that slow boat to China.
Okay.
Is because now you have four parties concerned. You have the federal government controlling everything and deciding that all the fees are going to be, say, your premiums are like $7,000 a year, and your deductible might be $10,000. So now you've got to come up with $17,000 before you can do anything, right?
I guess so, especially for major procedures, things like that. Yeah.
Right. Oh yeah. When it gets to Medicare and Medi-Cal, that sort of thing, they will tell the hospital, okay, your fee is $120, but we think that the fee should only be $30. And so we'll cover 100% of $30. So if you're one of those people under that, the cost for you is only $30, whereas the cost for somebody without anything is $120. So when you go and you ask them, how much is it going to cost? Well, it depends. Because insurance companies contract healthcare providers, and they make an agreement on how much the total should be, and that's called your adjusted total. And then they'll pay like 80% of the adjusted total. So it gets complicated, but if you've ever dealt with any insurance, you know that that's how it works. But when the government gets involved, now you got four parties concerned, and everything's changed. And having known what it takes to get the government to pay, and they're only going to pay a certain amount, which is going to be a lot less, so the healthcare provider doesn't make very much. So the patient comes in. In order to get this procedure paid for, you got to take an X-ray. So you put the patient in there. You take the X-ray. It gets put over to the people who do the paperwork. They send it into the government. The government goes, you know what? This X-ray isn't good enough. Take another one. So now you got to have the patient come back in. You got to take another X-ray. You got to use another film. You got to go back through the paperwork, resubmit it to the government, and maybe they will and maybe they won't pay it. So it all gets, so you can see where the costs skyrocket.
I hear you. Bobby, thanks for the call.
Thanks.
Okay, we're up against a break. So, John, if you'll hang on this is a 1-minute break, so we'll come right back. And we appreciate all your calls. Good to have you all back this morning. We are glad to be back here on Talkback. We'll be right back. I'm getting down, but I can't get back up again. John King's over there. I'm Peter Christian. Thanks for joining us. We're back on Talkback. How many times did we say the word
Not going to
back?
make any of the back jokes.
All right, let's get back to the phones on Talkback and say good morning. Hey, John, how are you?
Oh, pretty good. Yourself?
What's on your mind, sir?
Yeah, I got a little experience here, whereas about just over a year ago, I went in and had an operation done at St. Pat's. And because I had insurance, it was 30% less than if you didn't have insurance.
Okay.
Which sort of struck me a little bit odd, but whatever, that's the way it goes. And
30% less to you or 30% less to everybody involved in paying?
30% to me.
So isn't that likely because the insurance was picking up part of the tab?
Well, the total bill, because I had insurance, was 30% less.
Now, 30% less than what?
Than if you didn't have
Yeah, the reason I'm asking is how did you know it's 30% less than what it would have been had you not had insurance?
That's what they told me.
Okay. So what is your point? What are you saying?
Well, I'm saying evidently that if you have insurance, they're going to get paid. So they're not going to be losing money. Whereas if you don't have insurance, they bump it up for those that can pay, and people that can pay without insurance end up paying for those that can't.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot that goes into that factor. I mean, first off, if you are an insurance company, you're likely going to be maybe not Blue Cross Blue Shield last year. They got in trouble for this, but you're likely going to be paying for the services you say you'll cover, and you're probably a trusted payer. Whereas some individual off the street, Peter Christian, for example, who we all know makes buku bucks, but he may not be able to pay the cost of his new cybernetic arm that he got after putting it in a leaf blower.
In a snowblower, yeah.
Exactly, snowblower, yeah.
Thank you. Does that make sense?
So what I'm saying is that might be a factor of trust if you're not paying cash, for example.
Right. And then as far as the other deal goes on this Medicaid deal, as far as them coming back and making you pay, that's true.
All right.
Okay. Well,
hey, thanks.
Thanks for the call, John.
Because a friend of mine, his wife had to go into long-term, and to get in long-term, he had to go on Medicaid. So after she passes, they get half his house.
Oh, I see.
And then he can't have any assets whatsoever, so to speak, and he had to divest himself of most of his assets, including his cash,
right,
before he could get it.
Okay. Well, thanks for the call, sir.
You bet.
Have a great day. And Christine, you're back. Hi.
Hi. I need to correct something that last fella just said.
Go right ahead.
Okay, this is the way insurance works.
Okay.
Everybody they have an insurance rate, and this is the rate that people who have insurance are charged. And every insurance company has negotiated discounts based on the bulk that they work with that doctor or hospital. And so the discount he got was off the insurance rate.
Okay.
So his insurance company had negotiated a 30% discount off of the overall insurance rate.
Gotcha. So it's like bulk buying from, let's say, Costco, for example.
Actually, if you pay cash, there's a cash discount because they don't have to bill people.
Right.
And that's usually about 20-25%.
Wow. All right. Hey, thanks for the info, Christine.
But Christine, let me ask, because we got just a couple minutes left in the show here.
Okay.
When I had my wrist, I broke my wrist a couple of years ago, and I had it operated on at a local place. Nice people. I mean, the care was extraordinary. They did a great job, and I'm insured through the radio station here, and I ended up paying probably between $4,000 and $5,000 out of pocket for what was a pretty extensive surgery and put us back quite a ways. But if I hadn't had that, the overall cost of that surgery was well over $35,000. You know, and we're talking we're not talking major like heart surgery or anything. This was just a broken wrist.
And you got it in noble means. I mean, you punched Adolf Hitler in the face, right? That's how.
No, I didn't. I fell off a ladder. But anyway,
okay,
so does that making sense? It just seems like if you have the choice not to go to the doctor because of the sheer cost involved, a lot of people maybe might not even go at all, right?
Well, let me explain an incident that happened with my daughter.
We have 2 minutes. Go.
Okay, because I'm a cash payer. So what I do is I go in and I say, this is the service that I need, and this is what I'm willing to pay for it. And I negotiated to not do certain tests because I did not think they were important to the service that we were receiving. They wanted to do an X-ray, but it was to cover their liability, not for the care of my daughter.
Right, yeah.
So I was like, no, we're comfortable that this is the injury she has. I just want you to treat the injury. I don't want to do unnecessary tests to cover your liability. I signed a waiver. I paid cash. I got a 25% discount over the actual rate, not the insurance rate.
Okay.
And I walked out the door, and the whole thing cost me $80.
Good for you.
So John is absolutely right. We need to be consumers of health care, not third-party payer, not you just go in and it gets billed out of magic. We need to start being consumers.
But you are extremely fortunate to be in a position where you can be a cash payer.
Well, I have coverage, but the coverage that I've opted to get is one where you pay cash and you get reimbursed.
Oh, okay.
So that I have the negotiation power of paying cash, and the plan that I belong to, it's called Samaritan's Ministries, they will reimburse me for anything over $300.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, unfortunately, we are out of time. Christine, hey, thanks for calling.
No problem.
It's good to talk to you. All right, now it's Friday, so coming up Monday, we have open phones.
Open phones. I have a stack of stuff I brought to talk about today. We didn't even touch it because healthcare magically appeared on the agenda.
Ta-da! So thank you all. Go ahead.
Oh, that's good.
And next Tuesday and Wednesday, we have our regular guests.
Rob Nadelson on Tuesday, Walt Caro on Wednesday, World Affairs Council on Thursday. We'll be talking with a woman, a Yazidi woman. That's the group that's been persecuted in Iraq. And then on Friday, maybe Austin Knudsen.
You guys have a great day and have a wonderful weekend. Please be safe out there.